because this is going to be an update. I talked about this story about 3 years ago. So we're really getting to the end of this. And I got to tell you, the details might bother you about this story, but I'm glad we're finally about to start getting some justice. It takes a while for us to get here, but we're damn sure going to get justice for our children. That's why we're the AFC, the Advocates for Children. Let's give you a disclaimer. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. And I'm actually getting this. I hope I read this right. It's app.com. So thank you for the article. So there's a different news source, but I think that they gave a pretty comprehensive look at this. Y'all do me a favor, hit that thumbs up, share this story. That's a simple way to be able to get this out there so more people can see it. So a lot of you guys, and I always say this boy's name wrong, Corey Micciolo, Micciolo. I think it's Micciolo. If I'm wrong about that, y'all correct me in the chat. I will try to pronounce it correctly to put some respect on this baby boy's name on the right-hand side of the screen. The criminal trial of the father who stands accused of endangering and ultimately murdering his 6-year-old son got underway this past week. The case before the state superior court judge, Guy P. Ryan, has already become one of the most high-profile in Ocean County in years, with proceedings even being carried by Court TV. So let's talk about what we know so far. And again, this is a long-standing story because this has been at least a few years. On April the 2nd of 2021, back when this started, so yeah, that's about 3 years ago, 6-year-old Corey Micciolo died about an hour after his father, Christopher Gregor, 31 years old, of Barnegat, brought his limp body into the emergency room at the Southern Ocean Medical Center in neighboring Stafford. The child coded twice and died at 5:03 p.m. after life-saving measures were unsuccessful. And of course, we all wish that would have went a different way, right? We wish this baby boy could have survived. Assistant Ocean County Prosecutor Jamie Sharon told the jury in her opening statement Tuesday at Gregor's trial that the child died as a result of blunt force trauma. Y'all know that's because this baby boy probably got beat up. This is no accident. He didn't fall down some steps. He didn't bump into a door. He didn't jump off a roof and hurt himself. He didn't fall in a bathtub. None of that stuff. He died of blunt force trauma. Corey had contusions all over his body, and his heart and liver were lacerated. Gregor's attorney, Mario Gallucci, told the jury in his opening statement that medical experts dispute the cause of Corey's death. Gallucci said that medical witnesses will testify that Corey died as a result of sepsis caused by a bout of pneumonia, but that's not what we believe this is. On March 20th, 2021, surveillance footage from the gym, and if you guys want to see some of the surveillance footage, I'll show some of it. I do have it from the gym with the father having his son on the treadmill. Recorded the child running on a treadmill after his father lifted weights. Gregor was also seen on video going over to the treadmill and continuously increasing its speed, which caused Corey to fall off the machine face first at least 6 times. Corey's mother, Brianna Micciolo, who had visitation rights to her son, told the jury she noticed bruises on her child later that month. She took Corey to the hospital to see a child abuse specialist, where he revealed the treadmill incident. An examination by a pediatrician found no pressing health problems except for the bruises. Corey had about a dozen bruises, abrasions, or scratches on him in various stages of healing. So again, I think that's a big, big miss by them. You got evidence, they threw it out, they ignored it. Micciolo also filed an emergency application in family court for sole custody of Corey because she was in fear for his life. One day before Corey's death, the application was denied. And I just think that adds insult to injury. So I want y'all to think about this. Maybe I could be more understanding if they found no probable cause or found no standing evidence to say that, yes, this is abuse, and then the child survives and nothing happens, rather than all of these cases that we continue to keep having where they're like, hey, we're waving the red flag, something's wrong. They dismiss it and the child dies. That's what I hate to see. And that, I just think you have to err on the side of caution. If they're filing for emergency, they're probably not filing this for no damn reason. It's got to be for a good reason. She testified that when she dropped her son off at his father's apartment, that next morning he was fine. 8 hours later, he was dead. After nearly a year-long investigation into Corey's death, the Ocean County Medical Examiner's Office concluded that the boy had died of blunt force trauma to the chest and abdomen, and that the cause of death was a homicide. That is now a fact. We're working with facts. That means they absolutely got it wrong. Gregor, who already had been charged with child endangerment in the aftermath of Corey's death as a result of the treadmill footage, was now charged with the murder of his son. Let's skip some of this. If Gregor is convicted of murder, he would face a minimum sentence of 30 years without parole and up to a maximum sentence of life in prison. If convicted of child endangerment, the sentence would be about 10 years behind bars. And of course, they got this wrong clearly. But again, I think that if they're filing for these emergency interventions, they need to start taking this stuff more seriously, because clearly they're not. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. If y'all can, do me a favor and share this little boy's story. Share Corey's story. Hit that thumbs up. Leave a comment and let me know what you guys think. And let's continue to advocate for justice. I'll skip through some of these videos.
Dr. Crowns, I think
So calling your attention to April 2nd of 2021 at approximately 3:48 p.m. was a patient brought to the emergency room named Corey Micciolo.
Yes.
And can you...
So what you guys are listening to is a nurse describes 6-year-old Corey's condition before death.
tell the court who brought Corey into the emergency room?
Gregor.
And ultimately, did you learn the relationship of Gregor and Corey?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors what the relationship was?
Gregor is Corey's father, and Corey is Chris's son.
And where were you when you first saw Mr. Gregor with Corey?
I was in the waiting room. I was speaking to another patient at the time. I'm right near the door, speaking to another patient. I did not hear any commotion. I did not hear any...
See, if y'all are asking why nobody at the gym saw this, because it was at an apartment, like almost like a home gym. It was in the apartment complex. And more times than not, if y'all ever lived in an apartment complex, it's usually not a ton of people in those home-like gyms. So that's why they had the security footage in there and nobody else was in there, because it was at the apartment complex workout gym.
Urgent sound that would redirect my attention. A registrar came up to me and said, "Bill, you have to look at this." So I went over to Corey, and he was in the arms of Chris at the waiting room entrance, or just past the waiting room entrance near the desk.
Now, the first time that you observed the defendant with Corey, can you explain to the jurors the position of Corey in relation to the defendant?
Corey was over Corey was in Chris's arms. His arms were over Chris's shoulders. His legs were dangling. His arms did not look like they had much movement to them. His legs did not look like they had much movement to him. His head was rested on Chris's shoulder. His head was his face was difficult to visualize. So when I first approached them, I knew that something was concerning, but I couldn't see everything I needed to see. So I was depending on Chris to convey a sense of urgency or unwellness that I did not get from him at first. It was more of a clinical description of what was going on, and I did not immediately feel I had to rush them back. I definitely knew it was concerning, but I needed just a little more information. If I saw Corey's face right away, it would have been much easier, but Corey's face was on Chris's shoulder.
So the first time that you made this observation, that would be the two of them would have been in the lobby area.
Yes.
And did you approach the defendant in the lobby area of the emergency room?
Yes.
And what immediate observations were you able to make of Corey in the lobby area?
So I went over to them, and I was splitting my attention between Chris and Corey. What I could tell was that there wasn't a lot of spontaneous movement from Corey. He was not really moving on his own. He appeared to have a lack of tone to his muscles, and there was a lot of support coming from Chris in keeping him in the position that he was in.
Did you speak to the defendant in the lobby area of the emergency room?
Yes.
And would this be a practice or a common practice to engage in something like that?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors what the defendant said?
Chris told me that he introduced himself, who he was. He was the father, the son, and he told me that this was around 3, nearly 4 p.m. He told me that earlier in the day, around 9 a.m., his son was dropped off to him, was with his mother the night before. He did tell me that the patient was at Jersey Shore University Hospital and had a workup and was discharged. And just a side note, once you hear that, less than 12 hours later, you kind of go, okay, like maybe he's not that sick. So I need more information. So talk more. So Chris told me that earlier that morning he appeared loopy, he was very drowsy, and he put him to bed. And later in the afternoon, Corey continued to be loopy and drowsy. And when all that time passed and he was still fatigued and not himself, that's when he brought him into the ER. So that's what he told me.
After you made your initial observations and you spoke to the defendant, can you tell the jurors what you did next regarding Corey's care?
Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
I said after you made your observations in the lobby and spoke to the defendant, what did you do next regarding Corey's care?
I continued the history taking, which is pretty standard as a triage nurse to get history from the patient. I would have spoken to Corey, but he was not in a place to speak. He was not making any sound hardly. I continued my brief conversation with Chris until there was a moment when Corey tilted his head back, and that's when I got what I needed to see to really kick up the speed on this emergency.
So where was Corey taken at that point?
He was taken to the emergency room. Once I saw that, then I rushed it. So I called, his eyes were in the back of his head. He didn't look well. He was pale. I called the charge nurse immediately after that, and then I got a room, and being that Chris was holding him well, I didn't waste time getting a stretcher or a wheelchair. I said, hey, like, you okay to go to the ER? He goes, yes, and we went to the ER, to room 6, the emergency room.
What room did you go to in the emergency room?
Room 6.
And while you were in room 6 of the emergency room, can you tell the jurors who else came into that room?
So I already alerted help, so they were waiting for me. In that room was various emergency nurses and our ER physician and patient care tech.
And what, if anything, did the defendant say while you were in room 6?
At that time, now that as a triage nurse, my role was to get them to help, get the patient to help. So at that time, I focused more on Corey than the conversation with Chris. That's because that doctor, our ER physician, was speaking with Chris, getting essentially what I just got from Chris. He basically reiterated the story, how he was loopy and tired all day, and how he felt concerned that he didn't kind of shake out of that. So he brought him into the emergency room. He told him about the Jersey Shore hospital visit the night before, but it was more. I was working on Corey at the time.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you do regarding the treatment of Corey?
So we placed him on the heart monitor. Before that, we took off his clothes. That's when I noticed a bruise in his chest, and we still had to act quickly. So we put the heart monitor on him. I got an IV, drew blood from him, while the rest of the team was doing their various roles, including our physician who was talking to Chris.
What was the defendant's demeanor while you were in room 6?
While we were in room 6 was similar to when I first interacted with him in the waiting room. It was I would say it was a clinical aspect in that he was describing what was going on without much more difference than anyone else would, regardless of their role with the person. So he was conveying the information, but there wasn't much more than that.
And after you drew blood from Corey, where did you go after that?
Well, Corey required a lot of attention, so we still had an emergency room to run. So I told the charge nurse, I'll take the charge phone, which handles the ambulances. You focus on this. So I handled the charge nurse and the triage phone, and I went to various things throughout the ER while everyone worked on Corey. He was like an all hands on deck type of situation.
Corey.
So basically what he's saying is that the father just seemed to not really, like he was just kind of matter of fact about it. That's basically what it sounds like. It just sounds like it doesn't seem like a concerned father, right? If y'all would, do me a favor and please hit that thumbs up. Share this video. Please hit that thumbs up if y'all would, please, okay? Share this video for as many people who are watching right now. We want to have at least one thumb up for everybody watching, so do me a favor and please hit that thumbs up. We're having a little technical issue, but I think we might be okay.
Travis Micciolo. He liked the solar system. He liked to play outside. His mom describes him as silly and happy. Corey was 6 on April 2nd, 2021, when his father murdered him.
So this is the prosecutor. I want y'all to hear this. This is the prosecutor. Just refresh. We should be okay now. I'm watching it. We should be good. This is the prosecutor.
His father is this defendant, Christopher Gregor. This case is about Corey and how Corey became the ultimate victim of this defendant's punishment and abuse. During the course of the trial, you're going to hear from a number of witnesses and see a lot of evidence. you'll learn that on May 1st of 2014, Corey was born to Brianna Micciolo when she was just 17 years old. This defendant didn't come into Corey's life, and neither did the Gregors, until Corey was 4 or 5. Back in March of 2021, Corey's parents hadn't been together, but they shared custody. Corey lived with the defendant, and his mom had visitation. On March 20th of 2021, Corey's mom picked him up for a visit. They went to Pennsylvania, and they saw their family. They were supposed to be back at about 3 or 4 o'clock. They were in Pennsylvania, there was traffic, and they were running late. Corey's mom told the defendant that. But Brianna's lateness, you'll hear, was pissing him off. He told Brianna to drop Corey off at the apartment complex's gym and meet him there. So she did. Corey and the defendant went into the gym, and you'll see what happened next. Because that gym had a surveillance system, and you will see what this defendant did to his son inside that gym. After that day, when Corey went back to school during the week, his teacher, his first grade teacher, started to notice some bruises on Corey. She was concerned. She's going to tell you that after March 25th of 2021, Corey was never physically back in person in school ever again. During this time, Corey's mom was also concerned. She had seen bruises as well. She was so concerned that she filed an emergent application with the court to get custody. On April 1st of 2021, Corey's mom picked him up for her only visitation she had had that week, or during the week, which was 3 hours, and she brought him to a pediatrician. Corey spoke to the pediatrician. The pediatrician saw Corey's bruises. She too was concerned. So she sent Corey and his mom to a local hospital nearby. Ultimately, Corey was seen at Jersey Shore University Medical Center. And while at Jersey Shore, doctors looked at Corey's body. They checked his lungs. They checked his bones. They checked his labs. And shortly after 1 o'clock in the morning, or around there, Corey was discharged. He was medically cleared for release because there was nothing wrong with Corey's lungs. There was nothing wrong with Corey's bones, and his labs were normal. Corey was fine except for his bruises. Now, Corey's mom tried to bring Corey back to the defendant.
Y'all look at his face. Like, I know this is not a fun time. You're not supposed to have a jovial look on your face. That's a big word, jovial. Short word, but big word. But he just looks evil in the face. Like, could I see him in the face, judging a book by its cover, beating his son to a pulp the way that they're describing? Yes, I could see it. Just look at his face. He looks like an evil butthole.
Her visitation was over. And while they were at the doctor earlier, she learned that her application for custody had been denied in that regard, but that a child abuse examination had been ordered within 7 days by a specialist. And so, in trying to keep with the visitation schedule, she contacted the defendant and tried to bring Corey back. But he didn't answer. And so, since it's after 1 o'clock in the morning, Corey's mom and Corey go back to her house in Englishtown. And the two of them get home, everyone's asleep, they go in the basement, and they go to bed. That's where her room is. Corey wakes up in the morning. He has his breakfast. His mom dresses him in clean clothes. And he's with his mom the whole time. And she drives him back to the defendant's apartment in Barnegat. Corey and his mom sat in the car in the parking lot, and they said goodbye for what would be the very last time. Corey was walking. He will describe for you the contusions on Corey's body all over in different stages. And that the serious bodily injury that Corey sustained while with the defendant, and only the defendant, were so catastrophic that they ended his life. Now, there are 2 charges in this case. The first, endangering the welfare of a child, and the second, murder. The state must prove both beyond a reasonable doubt. That means you're firmly convinced, and that's a burden the state embraces. That first count, endangering the welfare of a child, is for what this defendant did to Corey in the gym on May 20th, 2021. And that second count is for what this defendant did to Corey on April 2nd, 2021. That's the murder. In order to prove a murder, the state has to demonstrate that a defendant acted purposely or knowingly. But rarely is there a person that can come into court and tell you what someone was thinking when they engaged in a particular act. So how do we prove that to you? We have to look at all the things the defendant was doing before, during, and after those crimes. Now, an expert in digital forensics will testify, and he'll tell you that he examined the defendant's cell phone. And from the defendant's cell phone, he was able to learn that throughout the day on April 2nd, 2021, the defendant was texting with a female associate, making plans for that night. On that same date, 3 hours before Corey died, he took a selfie with Corey on the couch. He also ordered McDonald's during that afternoon, and he did a search on his phone for loss of consciousness, sleepy, and nauseous. You're going to have information before you, and I'd ask you to consider it, about what this defendant was doing all day, at home, at the hospital, after he left. What he was saying to the people at the hospital, to Corey's mom, and everyone else. His texts, his phone calls, his web searches, his selfie, even his garbage. I'm going to ask that you pay attention to all of that. And when you do that, please pay attention to what's happening to Corey that day, that afternoon. On April 2nd, 2021, when Corey was brought back to his father, he vomited. He defecated in his pants, and his body was slowly shutting down. Consider what the defendant's doing while you consider what's happening to Corey. There were a lot of people in Corey's life, and you'll hear about some of them. Some might be positive, and some might not. But don't let that derail you. You all came here to serve as jurors in this case with everything that you need. And those.
Let's go ahead and go forward. I want y'all to see this part of it. This is in the apartment complex. This is the video. This, to me, is not how can I say this? This was a contributing factor to his death, but I think he was ultimately beat up. But this, you don't see that portion of it, I don't believe, on here. I'll show it. This is public. It was already public on YouTube, on some news stations, so they've already shown this. So we'll show it and just kind of let you guys judge for yourself. So that's fair warning. You might find this disturbing. Let me see. Do I have that disclaimer? I do. The following content contains material that may be harmful or traumatizing to some audience. So that is a content warning. And also, let's give you guys another trigger warning, just in case. All right. Now, let's take a look. So if you guys can see that, he's working out back there in the back. I'll make it bigger so y'all can see it. Got that baby on there just running his little heart out. This boy over there running like he's training for the Olympics or something. And he's watching himself do this to his son. He's in court watching it. Notice he's not on that treadmill with his son doing that speed. Y'all hit that thumbs up if y'all can see it. I've literally taken up my whole screen so y'all can see this. I need to be able to see his face, his reaction. What, 6 years old? Still going. 6 years old. He's speeding it up. I guess that wasn't good enough. He's speeding it up. Can't keep up. He's already sliding backwards. And what is Dad doing? Not running with him. He's standing there. Speeding it up. Speed it up there. That's a baby. That's 6 years. He's 6 years old. Look at that. He's at a full-blown sprint. That's a full-blown sprint. He's got that thing turned up quickly. Look at this. About to fall off. He's speeding it up. He just sped it up even more. Oh my He can't even get on the goddamn. Not even professional athletes would have been able to get on there and do that. So basically, what you guys saw was y'all saw some of the abuse that the father inflicted on his 6-year-old baby son. And yeah, y'all heard people in the courtroom. That was not video sound from the treadmill area, the workout room. That was from the court. So after this, he went and beat his son to death. After this. The mom clearly wanted to be a mother in her son's life. Now, why were they splitting custody, or why did she have visitation instead of custody? That I don't really actually know. I don't know that I even want to dive into that. But I will say this. I'll say this. Regardless, he acted as in a way that he did not love his son, and if he didn't, which he's proven he did not, then he could have let her have him, give up custody, maybe give her more time with him, let him cool off, do something else. I don't know. But they did have a GoFundMe up, and they raised to the tune of $14,000. I don't remember what the initial goal was, but nonetheless, that GoFundMe was done a while ago. But there was a lot of abuse here, and to me, that signifies that he didn't love his son, didn't care about him, and he caused his death. So for that, I think he needs a life sentence, straight up and down like that. But I know that's hard to watch, but I want you guys to remember this is why it's important for us. If you see something, say something. If anybody at that apartment complex saw this and didn't say anything, they could have saved a life. For the mother who tried to report that her son was going through some things and had bruises all over him, for them to ignore it, that was an opportunity for them to save a life. And they failed. But ultimately, the failure is on mom and dad for them to work this out, to be a solid couple together and raise these children. I never like to blame the system. The system did fail, but the system is a fail safe, just in case if the mother and fathers can't figure it out and they don't work out. So we have to start doing better as parents, raising these children in stable households and do what's best by our children, and not just what feels good to us, what's most convenient for us, and what we feel like it, or because we're mad at the other parent and we take it out on the children. This baby boy deserved every opportunity to grow up and become something great. So Corey, young prince, RIP. We will do a final update when we get a final sentencing on this story. If there are more details that come out that we don't already know about, we'll talk about it then, okay? Leave a comment in the comment section, hit that thumbs up, and let me know what you guys think. Let's get justice, because that is every bit of wrong. And that father needs to pay for everything that he did. So RIP, Prince.